So when I actually I got my acceptance letter, there was so much paperwork going back and forth that it was very frustrating. And at one point, it seemed like I would lose everything and won't be able to go there. Which actually, Canadians invented hockey and basketball, some criminally high areas. I think like in Toronto, there's this place called the intersection of Jane Street and Finch Street. You would just go upstairs. You're like, yeah, I know what's gonna happen. Just go to the street, get a cab.
Okay. Yaxşı, yaxşı, bəs deyiləm.
Rakurs yaxşıdır video.
You're looking great, bro. Are you ready to switch to English?
Yes.
Oh yeah, for
Yes.
sure. Okay.
Right.
All right. Let's start our video. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm here joined with Kamran Maharramli.
Hello everyone.
Who is who actually was my classmate when we were back since middle school, I believe, or high school, I don't remember. From I think 6th grade, 7th grade, something like that.
7th grade, yeah.
7th grade. So we were like around what age? 14, 13, something like this?
Yeah, around that time.
Ish. So,
yeah.
Amran, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, who you are, and where you're coming from? And what do you do?
Well, okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Kamran Maharramli. I am 22 years old. I'm currently working as a production chemistry engineer at Nalco Champion. I don't know if that's necessary.
Okay. Yes, it is.
I studied abroad. I studied in Canada for 4 years. I got my bachelor's of chemical engineering from University of Toronto, and I was very lucky enough to get into a government scholarship program. As Rafat mentioned, we studied together. We actually studied in the Dadagorbut Lyceum, which was one of the, I would say, perhaps one of the best schools that I think you could find in Azerbaijan. And that's where we got really involved with I think the SPARE project.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, we got
it was written like SPARE, but we were saying it like spotted because it was the abbreviation of the
yeah. And after that, we got really into understanding the environment. That's actually what prompted one of the things that prompted my let's say curiosity towards specifically chemical engineering, because chemical engineering is learning more about like processes, and that does include environment as well and our effects on it.
Mm-hmm.
And and we were, well, lifelong friends now. We chat almost all the time. We check up on each other, and yeah, that's me.
Well, that was a really descriptive intro, Kamran. Well,
yeah.
I just wanted to mainly focus on your study abroad. Like not semester, but the 4 years that you study when you were back in Canada. And could you please tell me like when did you want to like study abroad? Like when this whole like ideas started? Like was it back when you were school, or like how did you like start with this whole idea that you wanted to move abroad and study there?
So the idea was there from quite a young age, I would say, perhaps I don't know, 5th or 6th grade. Around that time, I was very curious about learning other cultures, specifically North American culture. And then, so one of the ways to actually go there, well, besides actually travel with your family, was to get into that university. And we had that program, the government scholarship program that I talked about. So I I was thinking about going there for a very long time. I did my best. Thankfully, I studied hard. I got into the university. Yeah, I got into the so when I actually got I got my acceptance letter, there was so much paperwork going back and forth that it was very frustrating. And at one point, it seemed like I would lose everything and won't be able to go there, which kind of set a little bit of panic in me
Remember
at
that?
the
No, I
time.
was crying.
Yeah, yeah. So the thing is, they were supposed to give me a letter that guarantees that the government will pay for my studies and so on. And what happened was the deadline to actually defer the payment was, I think, like 2nd or 3rd of September, and I think they gave me it on the 1st, and that's after calling them every day constantly. I was just, I was just being very annoying, and they just, thankfully they gave it to me. I called the university and said, "Well, here it is, everything's there," and yeah, and then I was on my way to Toronto.
Wow, what a story, huh? So how was your like? Did you do your research before moving to Toronto? Like about Canadian culture or like about studies there, like or
E-
kind of like wanted to go and then explore it by yourself there.
so I did do a little bit of research. I was look because University of Toronto wasn't my only option. I was applying to various universities in Turkey, like Middle East Technical University, Istanbul Technical University, University of Toronto. I think at one point I applied to Waterloo, uh,
I remember
and
you had like, an option that you were like you didn't get accepted to Turkey, I think, and then like you had this
yeah. So that
Azerbaijan and Toronto.
yes, so that was a bit scary point at a time because uh, uh, no, I really wanted to go abroad and study there, and University of Toronto at the time was, I think, 17th in the world ranking. So that was very uh, prestigious to go there. Well, it also helped that I had a relative there who was very helpful
Hmm.
in my transition when I got there. But that's beyond the point. I did research the life in there. I did research the people, and uh, thankfully, my research was correct. People were very warm because it's a country of immigrants. To
Hmm.
say the majority of the population are coming from various countries, from Europe, from Asia, from Africa, from all over the place,
Hmm.
and they were very open-minded, I would say, to various cultures,
Yeah.
and they would always welcome it. So
Were there many
when I got
Aztecs
there,
there or not that much?
uh, not that much. I may be wrong with the numbers. I think in city of Toronto there were like 2,000
Wow.
Azeris. Yeah, I may be wrong. Yeah, I may be wrong with the statistics, but I think that was the number that I heard at the time.
Hmm.
I did know a couple of students from there. The people that were in the in the grade above us, I think like people like, I think, Vusal, and so they also went to University of Toronto. So I actually met them there when we went to the same school. So I
I
actually met,
meant like in our high school.
yeah, the people that went to our high school. Yeah, I met them there, and there were a couple of Azeri students. They were mainly in, I think, uh, industrial and computer science, industrial engineering and computer engineering, something like that.
Got it.
And so I was the only Azeri student there for, I think, like 2 or 3 years out of 4 years.
In your program.
Yeah, in my program in chemical engineering,
Got it.
and yeah, and people were they didn't know that much about Azerbaijan when I actually got there.
That's actually going to be one of my next questions. So wait,
Yeah.
so like, Kamran, what was like anything unique about like studying abroad? Like, what was like the one of the, let's say, adventurous experiences that you had while you were there? Like,
Well, it was definitely that people were different. The culture was different. Uh, I would. It's very tough to describe unique because all of my life, I mean, I lived in Azerbaijan. I mean, I did visit a couple of countries in Europe, but as a tourist, I didn't live there.
Right.
And so when I got to Toronto and I had to actually live there, a couple of things unique. Well, they have a good and bad transportation system for one. Good in the sense that it works in very harsh conditions. Bad, it's very inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
So there were sometimes delays for I don't know like 6 hours, and
Really?
people, I mean hundreds, yeah, people like hundreds and hundreds of people would just clump in one place. They had this central station called Blur-Young,
Okay.
which is the intersection of two lines, the yellow Finch line and the green, like, I think Kennedy line or something like that. There were these two lines, and their intersection was Blue and Young, which was the downtown Toronto. It was like a business center,
Mm-hmm.
and so because of it was the center, people would just come there. It was the main station where you would take the route north or east, west, or south.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and especially in the mornings, the delays, and people would just be there, and it was terrible. You would just go upstairs. You're like, yeah, I know what's gonna happen. Just go to the street, get a cab, get where you want. Other than that, again, since it's very multicultural, they have a lot of restaurants with a very unique cuisine.
Okay.
Uh, so there's a street called Spadina Street, which is mainly Asian food and Asian restaurants, Chinese, Japanese, Korean,
Mm-hmm.
and all of them are very tasty. I've been to them. I think that one of them was like mother's dumplings.
So what
It
was
was very tasty.
the weirdest thing that you ate while we were there then? Did you have any?
Oh, the weird. The, I didn't eat a lot of weird things, so I didn't actually go beyond my comfort zone that much. But I did try bubble tea for the first time in there.
See what's
I don't know
that?
if you ever. It's very popular in Asian countries, I think. It's yeah, so it's just tea with like various fruits, as much as I know, and they would add this thing called tapioca,
Okay.
which was like very chewy, very gummy texture to it, and I don't know, I really liked it. My parents didn't like it, but I loved it.
Oh wait, they visited you while you were there, right?
Well, yeah, they visited on my in my last year of study. So when I actually graduated, there
Actually.
was this whole ceremony. So they actually came and visited, and we went on. We went to visit Montreal. We went to visit Quebec City.
Mhm.
We passed through Kingston, I think, and well, mainly Toronto. Went to a place like Toronto Zoo, CN Tower, which was beautiful. The 360 CN Tower, it was gorgeous.
Got it. Well, that sounds pretty adventurous already, Kamran. So, like, did you have any like sorry, any like bucket list like before you moved there, like you kind of came up with, you were like, I want to do specifically these things, and you did it.
Uh, that's a tough question. The thing is, I didn't plan on a lot of things. Just get on my bucket list. I really want to go and explore, uh, well, Toronto and see what kind of place it is. Because in like in the movies and stuff, when we watch it, uh, it's just it's our perception, it's what we see in the movies, and then you go there and you see what it actually like.
Right.
So I really want to see that. um bucket list. There were a couple of things I wanted to try. I wanted to try uh, like specifically their food, ribs. I really want to try pork ribs in
Mm-hmm.
there. So and fried wings. It's not much, but it's very North American to make like wings with say with beer and stuff, and you would watch hockey or say baseball. or basketball or something.
I was
And
actually going to ask, what about hockey? Like you never mentioned hockey. It's like kind of
uh,
into hockey,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, hockey culture is it's very famous there. Actually, Canadians invented hockey and basketball, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Well,
uh,
that's a good, interesting fact there.
yeah. I went to a couple of games. So the team in Toronto was Toronto Maple Leafs,
Hmm. Well, they have another
and
team there, no?
sorry.
They should be like Maple Leafs, and then there should be another team too. No?
So there's a junior league called Marlies.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are, I think, people uh, who are, I think, like a bit younger than the actual players, and they usually play in the Marlies. And then when they get older and get more experience, I think they move on
It's
to
like
Maple Leafs.
it's like in US they have this NFL like for football, and then they have the college football league, like something
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. So they have this event. The US has this event called March Madness.
that. Okay.
It's when the college basketball teams play among each other. I think they're like 64 teams,
Okay.
and if you make your draft and say this team is gonna win with this path, so this team, that team, whatever, they're all gonna lose. I think they give you like $1 billion or something like that.
Really?
Like very, yeah, like very high amount of
Like lottery or something?
money. Yeah, so you have to register. You have to be either U.S. or Canadian citizen to actually do that.
Okay.
Uh, and if you submit your draft, you'll get a lot of money. Some like Sportsnet, I think they offer uh, like 100K. Yeah, so if you got, I think, like first and second round picks correct,
Okay.
I think they will give you 100,000. I don't remember the exact rules. Maybe they changed it this year, but there was something like that. I didn't go to a basketball game, but I went to Maple Leafs game against Colorado Avalanche,
Oh shit.
where they won. Yeah, where they actually won. So my cousin's friend, he's an Avalanche fan, and me and my cousin, we were, well, I didn't support any team. I just said, well, let's support Toronto. So I was trying to be a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, and and then they lost. I was like, "Woo, losers!"
Really?
uh, yeah, yeah. But it was a very fun experience. The arena was very big. Like there were a couple of floors, and like maybe 50, 60,000 people in there.
Wow.
There was, yeah, it was
50,000,
massive.
really?
Yeah,
That's a lot
something
of
like that.
people.
Yeah,
What the fuck?
yeah. There's a lot of people. Actually, I'll check later what was the actual number, but I think that
Yeah.
was the
Well,
that was the impression that I got.
the only hockey game that I went was Lincoln Stars from Nebraska.
Hey, nice.
Like I don't know, like 1,000 people in total there, or something like that. I don't know which was it. But yeah, Cameron, my last question is about you. Well, it's not a question; it's kind of like more of you describing me. Well, I can see that you have enjoyed a lot your study abroad, like whole 4 years. Like, how would you describe your study abroad in 3 words or in three like adjectives or whatever you want to say? Like,
uh,
nice.
amazing. Number one is amazing, definitely. Number two, educational.
Oh, wow.
Uh, Well, I mean, I got my bachelor's degree. It has to be educational.
Well, me too.
Oh, no. Well,
I'm not in Canada.
it wasn't just the, yeah, it wasn't just the university. It was also the culture. It was the people and how they behaved, which is slightly different than how people behave in, say, Azerbaijan. They have a different set of values, I would say.
Well, of course.
Uh, yeah, similar. Some things are very common, but some things are drastically different.
Mhm.
And number three, how would I describe it? Number three, exciting. I don't know.
Yeah, there you
You
go.
have that, yeah.
Well, and my final kind of questions will be like more of a recommendation type. Like, what would be your I mean, as an experienced, like, student who has already been abroad like several times, like, what would be your kind of like best advice or recommendation for someone who would be going for their study abroad semester, or like a studying abroad year?
Uh, I would say to keep an open mind about people, about your experiences around you. If you're self-conscious about the way you speak that specific language, don't
Mhm.
be.
Like the accent or
Yes, yes. So I was a little self-conscious about it because
but your English
uh,
was really good even before when you moved there.
yeah, but there's things called like slangs, and I had no idea
But
what
of
that
course,
was. And
come on, like it's your first time you're moving somewhere, and especially if it's Canada, like who is like they're native speakers, like so
yeah,
it does make sense.
yeah, it does. But sometimes I don't know. I if I don't know a language to a certain degree, I get a little I get a little self-conscious about it. So I try to make sure that I know it, uh, well, not to perfection, but to a certain degree, and that I'm confident that I can speak in that language. So keep an open mind about it. Don't be afraid about the way you speak. That's totally fine. I've seen people there who had like very crazy accent. It would take maybe 2 or 3 takes for me to understand them, and yeah. So that kind of things is fine. Um, what else? Always learn about the transportation system that's going on in there. Uh, don't be like do these things before you come to Canada.
Mhm.
Make sure you know the streets. You know specifically know the regions that you should and shouldn't visit. Like some criminally high areas. I think like in Toronto, there's this place called the intersection of Jane Street and Finch Street.
Okay.
You wouldn't want to be there in a broad daylight. So
Wow, really?
uh,
Is it that
yeah,
dangerous?
well, it's not favorable to be there. I mean, if you're in a car and just passing through, yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, there's not much going to happen. But if you're going to walk around, there's a bit of high chance to of some things to happen.
Tell us your
So.
story. Like, what happened? Did something happen to you while you were there?
Uh, no, but thankfully I did my research. uh, so I didn't actually go through that area, but I heard a lot of stories
Mhm.
involving that specific area, which are which were kind of a bit scary. Uh,
Damn.
and yeah, so always do your research about the transportation area, about transportation, about the areas you shouldn't visit, and I don't know, things like price of the food, how much you're expecting to spend, because at least in Toronto, the house prices there were insane. I mean,
Mhm.
minimum $1,000 per month. Well,
Mhm.
1,000 Canadian, so that's about
900
8 800, I would say, of
US
what's the
dollars.
name? Yeah, of US dollars. So yeah, they were very high, and uh, it was a bit unexpected when you're comparing to something like in Azerbaijan, where we have like 300, 200 manats maybe.
Mhm. Yeah, I
So
mean, there's like a massive
oh,
difference. But yeah, I mean
yeah,
that's definitely helpful, Kamran, and thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for sharing your experience, and
yeah.
that's
Thank
it
you.
from our episode. And I will see you in the next episodes. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Males, males. Get nga